It won't surprise you to know that Donald Trump doesn't appear to know how the world works. He seems to believe that wealth is something to be traded or given only with conditions. But unlike him, America is truly a wealthy nation. More importantly, the US leads by example, showing the world that generosity is a source of strength. Trump is so evil, racist and xenophobic that he cannot comprehend the US being generous to less fortunate nations. The malignant narcissist assumes there must be corruption where there is none. Why? Because normally he would be the one getting a kickback.
Look at all the fraud that he's found in this USAID. It's a disaster what the people, radical left lunatics, they have things that nobody would have even believed. The whole thing with $100 million spent on you-know-what, with money going to all sorts of groups that shouldn't deserve to get any money, with the money. I'd like to see what the kickbacks are. How much money has been kicked back? Who would spend that kind of money to some of the things that you read about and I read about and I see every night on the news and every morning when I read the papers? Who would spend money for that? I would say this, the people that got all that money, are they kicking it back to the people that gave it from government? And to me, very, very corrupt.
By dedicating less than 1%, about 0.63% of our federal budget to USAID, America earns respect as a nation that supports and protects those in need. That's what makes us strong. Not Trump's threats of 25% tariffs on our allies unless they meet his demands. Trump has allowed his live-in boyfriend, Elon Musk, a man with no qualifications other than vast wealth, to freeze all programs and initiatives that help keep the poorest people on our planet alive. The U.S. Agency for International Development was the main government agency responsible for providing humanitarian aid and supporting economic development around the world. Created in 1961, its mission was to help countries in need, especially those facing conflicts or crises, while also advancing U.S. interests. USAID works to reduce poverty, improve health, and provide emergency relief, as well as support economic growth in developing nations. In 2023, USAID controlled over $40 billion in funding, which made up more than a third of the US government's foreign aid budget. This money is used to help countries in need, especially those that are important to US foreign policy. USAID works in about 130 countries, but in 2023, the top 10 recipients of its funding were Ukraine, Ethiopia, Jordan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Nigeria, South Sudan, and Syria. A large portion of USAID's budget in 2023, 40% of it, went to Europe and Eurasia, with most of it directed to Ukraine due to the ongoing war there. Critical shipments of life-saving medicines have now been halted. Children are now facing hunger and malnutrition throughout the world after Elon Musk decided to shut down USAID, the leading international aid agency. Scenes of chaos have unfolded across dozens of countries as aid organizations warn of worsening disease, famine, and devastating setbacks in areas like family planning and girls' education. One former USAID official described Elon Musk and Donald Trump's actions as an extinction-level event. Consequences are already severe. In Sudan, where the world's worst humanitarian crisis is unfolding, warehouses full of critical medicines have been abandoned. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, escalating violence in the east has made the situation even more dire. Across Africa, hundreds of thousands of children who depend on school meal programs have been left without food after supplies were left to spoil, following Musk's declaration that he wanted the US agency to die. USAID has over 10,000 employees, with about two-thirds working overseas. The agency runs more than 60 offices around the world that oversee various projects. These projects are not carried out directly by USAID, but are instead handled by partner organizations such as non-profits and private companies, universities, international organizations, foreign governments, and non-governmental organizations. USAID funds these partners through grants, cooperative agreements, or contracts to help countries develop in areas such as health, education, infrastructure, and governance. USAID spends most of its money on healthcare, humanitarian aid, and governance. Historically, USAID has spent most on health programs, especially efforts to fight diseases like HIV and AIDS and COVID-19. In 2022, emergency relief such as food and shelter, medical supplies became USAID's largest area of spending due to growing global crises. In 2023, they spent more money helping foreign governments, especially Ukraine, and that became the biggest category of spending. You see, it changes as need changes. They addressed global challenges like wars and authoritarian governments and health threats. These are the priorities of USAID, building new partnerships, including working with local organizations and private companies, and improving USAID itself by strengthening its workforce and focusing on effective, evidence-based programs. Things that Donald Trump cares nothing for. Besides its regular development work, USAID has played a major role in responding to Russia's war in Ukraine. Billions of dollars have gone to support Ukraine's government and humanitarian relief and rebuilding efforts. I mean, where do you think the money comes from? Conflicts in the Middle East that USAID has provided humanitarian aid to in Gaza and other conflict zones. In 2021, the Biden administration gave USAID a permanent seat on the National Security Council. Democratic administrations and lawmakers have historically been more supportive than Republicans. But every post-war president, whether Democrat or Republican, has been a strong proponent of foreign aid, apart from Donald Trump. USAID plays a key role in global development and crisis response, managing billions of dollars to help struggling countries. As of this week, USAID has been shut down by billionaire Elon Musk under the guise of his Doge cost savings. And even today, Elon Musk has proposed a wholesale removal of regulations as an intensification of his crusade to slash U.S. federal government spending. He also said that the early days of Trump's presidency, combined with a Republican-controlled Congress, presented a unique chance of implementing a radical overhaul of the U.S. government. He said, if it's not possible now, it'll never be possible. This is our shot, he said. This is the best hand of cards we're ever going to have. And if we don't take advantage of this best hand of cards, it's never going to happen. Democrats ran Kamala Harris on the policy that billionaires would pay a little more tax, protecting USAID and all of the programs, entitlements, and public services that most working Americans rely on. Trump supporters voted for the destruction of these initiatives and for billionaires to pay even less tax than they do now, forcing Trump to start trade wars to bring in revenue that consumers will ultimately foot the bill for. MAGA Republican leadership isn't just cruel, it's greedy and cruel, where money is more important than people and increasing their bottom line takes precedent over the sanctity of human life. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.